Down a dirt road, there's a dark story.
It was not a random thing. I don't believe at all.
A picture-perfect teacher, 57-year-old Jean Schoeneberg.
She was just always a very beautifully dressed person, carried herself well, spoke well.
Murdered in the middle of nowhere.
90 miles from Houston and 40 miles from Victoria.
But maybe that was by design. The crime scene, surrounded by cows and crops in rural Wharton County, seems like an ideal place for a killer to disappear.
I thought a lot about it.
Friend and fellow teacher Lois Woodring was supposed to have lunch with Jean that day.
I was waiting on her and trying to figure out why she wasn't showing up.
But turns out she was already dead.
And the desire to solve something.
Sergeant Scott Grosser remembers hearing the call from County Road 311. It was August 5th, 1999.
The big question obviously early on is who did it? Why did they do it? Why did she have to die?
That morning, Jean was walking down this gravel road like she did almost every day. She was about a mile from her house when investigators say she was brutally attacked.
Well, right here at the edge of the road, there was evidence of a struggle. There was some pooling of blood and some disruption of the gravel.
Her throat was cut twice, but there were no signs of sexual assault and nothing stolen.
It was a very violent attack. Someone managed to approach her, whether they were in a vehicle or approached on foot from somewhere they were hiding is unknown.
The odd thing, it happened right at this tree, Jean's turnaround point to head back home.
It almost seems like someone had to have known her, know her patterns.
Were there any witnesses out at that scene that morning that saw something that you could work with?
No.
Nobody heard screams?
No, nothing. The whole area is family.
A family, husband, son, and daughter, that over the years haven't said much publicly about the murder. In fact, they asked us to just leave it alone.
I would like to see justice for Jean.
This friend, though, is talking, hoping it can make a difference. And after the funeral, she noticed something she shared with the Texas Rangers.
I mean, I thought I knew Jean really well, and then I found out that whenever I got her keys from her husband, I found out that she had those keys fit a mailbox in Edna.
That was strange to Lois because Jean lived in the Louise area and taught in Ganado. But Edna is the next town over and the opposite direction.
She just didn't want that to be shared with others, I guess. You know, everybody has secrets.
But who was Jean getting mail from? Deputies chased down leads from letters, but they didn't want to talk about what or who they found. Only that it didn't lead to a killer.
Do you believe the killer is still out there?
Yes, and I believe there's probably people that know who did it.
After the family was ruled out, investigators turned their attention to Ganado High School, where Jean taught.
What was campus like when Jean was murdered?
Well, a very somber time, very sad time for our students and for our faculty and our community.
Volume 51.
Maybe she was here longer than I think she was.
There she is, Jean Schoeneberg, 1993.
She was well liked by our students and by our staff.
Jean taught in Ganado for at least 5 years, mostly English.
This is Miss Schoeneberg's classroom.
And still in her old room, students are learning about the words investigators are missing to solve the case.
Did she have any enemies?
Not that I'm aware of. This was a due school year. I don't see any reason for anything to have been unusual with them, and I don't think it was a student or a young person that did this.
But if it wasn't a student, then who? Detectives are starting over, following a new lead behind bars. They're even resubmitting DNA evidence, hoping to find a match to someone already in the system.
Because it needs to be solved. A woman was murdered out here. She didn't deserve to die like that.
But for now, it's just another lead that could be as remote as the crime scene itself.
And any reason to believe her murders connected to other murders?
It doesn't fit a pattern. It doesn't fall in place with any other series of unexplained attacks of its nature. It stands alone.
Just like Jean did that morning. Or so she thought.
I've always wanted some sort of closure for this.
Murdered in a small town where she thought she was safe.
I know that there's a lot of people that have questions about what happened to her. I don't think her case has ever been forgotten.